Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's event, Deep Dive on Microsoft Azure Active Directory Premium. Before we get started, I'd like to explain some of the ways that you can participate. This presentation is being recorded and you're currently in listen-only mode. We encourage you to participate in the session today by using the message panel at any time to ask questions or provide comments. We will take questions at the end of today's event. You simply type your question into the box and click send. And finally, if you experience any technical difficulties, please first refresh your browser by clicking the refresh button on the browser or by pressing F5 on your keyboard. If this does not resolve your issue, please send us a message and we will work to assist you with your issue. I would now like to hand things over to your presenter, Senthil Panchatram. Senthil, you now have the floor.
Thanks, Tricia. Good morning, good afternoon. So today we're going to be starting to talk about the Microsoft Enterprise Mobility Suite series, and the first topic we're going to cover today on this session is really the hybrid identity on Active Directory Premium. About myself, I'm an Azure practice leader for Lighthouse Computer Services. We are a partner organization with Microsoft. I have 15 years of experience focusing on Microsoft-centric software. I'm also a Microsoft virtual technology specialist for Microsoft on Azure platform. With that little bit introduction, let's just get started on Enterprise Mobility Suite. So typically, if you look at Enterprise Mobility Suite, that's Microsoft package service that supports for enterprises to have the single sign-on as well as the managed devices and provide those apps and device management to the customers in a reliable and a secure manner using a data protection as well. So Enterprise Mobility Suite, or EMS, what it is made of is really three components. It's three core services that Microsoft packages them and sells them as a single services. And the first one is really the topic of today, which is hybrid identity. It's done through a Microsoft Azure Active Directory Premium. And I'll be doing a little bit deep dive on that later today. So that's the first portion. The second portion of the Enterprise Mobility Suite services is Windows Intune, where enterprises could manage their devices and allows the enterprise to not only enroll the devices, but also be able to manage and maintain them. Also selectively wipe those devices, which is the bring your own device. If you have bring your own devices, you could do selective wipes as well. That's supported by Windows Intune. And the third component of Enterprise Mobility Suite is really the having those data given to end users, either on the desktop or the bring your own devices. How securely can you manage as an enterprise, make sure your data is secured, is done through Azure Rights Management Services. Basically, you can use that to cover the information policies, apply them. Also, you can use your own key that would have the encryption for you. Those two topics would be the following webinars about mobile device management and Azure information policies as well. So with that being said, let's just dive into Azure Active Directory Premium. So what is Azure Active Directory Premium? It's a comprehensive identity and access management cloud solution. Right? It also combines the directory services as well as the governance and managing the application in a rich standards-based platform. It's available in 3 editions: free, basic, and premium. You can think of Active Directory, Azure Active Directory as a control plane. If you think about it as a central management console where you are actually allowing the Azure Active Directory to connect to your on-premises Active Directory through a simple connection through Azure Connect with Azure AD Connect. It allows you to do self-service. Self-service is really the key now with the Azure, as well as the product enterprises really has to offload a lot of administrative tasks, empowering the end users by not only managing their own passwords, but also having the administrative burden to be delegated. That's the whole idea of self-service. I'll be covering them in a demo as well. Single sign-on is really a core piece of Azure Active Directory. So you have thousands of applications that are software as a service in Azure Active Directory that are integrated today. Not only that, you can also enable single sign-on for your on-prem applications, as well as your build your own application, as well as publish your on-prem applications through a single sign-on. Some of those topics I'll be covering later in the demo. So we talked about 3 different features. One is the Azure AD Free, which provides the common features. Here is a slide that talks about all the differences. The key piece that I really would like to concentrate on this is really the group management provisioning process, as well as self-service password management. Even though the free allows you to do those change password for cloud users, when you go to the basic premium, you get additional functionalities such as password resets. And for those who are actually in the administrative side of the equation, you know the password change is where the user actually puts in their existing password to change their password. The resets are really done by administrator, where you are actually resetting it without asking the existing passwords. Those functionalities are provided by Basic as well as Premium. Another piece that that you get by AD Basic or Premium is the company branding when you log into your Office 365. Also, Microsoft guarantee you a 99% SLA when you go with Basic or Premium. And today's topic being Premium, I'll just cover all the ones in the green here. The new feature through Azure AD Connect preview is really the write-back capability. I'll be doing a little bit deeper on that, specifically how that works, how you can actually enable those write-back capabilities. Essentially, what it is really if you're already doing Active Directory synchronization through your existing AD, now Azure AD now supports the password changes to be written back to your on-prem AD. There's a self-service group management, which is again going back to the self-service, enabling end users as well as administrative. If you look at the number of times that administrative IT staffs are getting burdened, is really for passwords management, which kind of offloads through going with AD Premium. Multi-factor authentication, again, it's part of the premium feature. You can also do now on-premise MFA server, so you can actually install the multi-factor authentication server on your on-prem to enable your on-prem applications to be selectively enabling multi-factor authentication. Think about that as a way to enable your on-prem applications to be taking advantage of the cloud functionalities. You could do both ways. You could actually take the cloud MFA servers, enable them, also do on-prem services. Azure AD Application Proxy, it's still in the preview. That allows your on-prem applications to be cloud integrated. It's really in the preview. I'll touch upon it later in the slide. Those are some of those things that you can see in the AD Premium comparison. So on a high-level summary, these are the premium identity capabilities. The big one is really self-service, password management, and the delegated administration. The second one is really the app management. And app management is really huge. We talk about software SaaS applications, which are already pre-integrated to Azure AD Premium, such as Box or Skype or Twitter. There is like 2,800 apps right now integrated into Azure AD. And not only that, you can also enable your applications to be managed through the Azure AD Premium. Multi-factor authentication is huge. What's nice about this multi-factor authentication in the newer version, the preview version, is really you can conditionally enable multi-factor authentication based on the nature of your application that you're publishing. With the cloud being in the forefront now, with the machine learning integration as well as predictive analysis, Azure AD now supports intelligence-based reports that alerts users if there is an anomaly in authentication or logins. Also, it provides you some administrative dashboard kind of a report which tells you which are the places where the application is being consumed from. So you get a lot of predictive analysis from that, and then let you know in a near instant how your application is being used and from where all the applications is being logged at. And there are a lot of reports that you can actually run. Premium. So let me just jump into a quick overview of what Azure Active Directory looks like in this. So I'm going to cover in this demo a quick overview of Azure Portal as well as the self-service capabilities. So here I am in my Internet Explorer. So I'm going to use our own demo tenant called LPS MTG demo. I'm going to log in to this demo application. Right away, you can see this is Office 365 login. You can see that this is custom branded. So you can see that it's not Microsoft. And I just made a Microsoft with this person, but you can actually log in. You can customize it. I'll go over that. That's one of those feature that AD Premium as well as the basic feature allows. So I'm going to go ahead and remain signed in to this. So while that's happening, I'm going to go into the Azure portal as well. So here is Azure portal where I can actually see my Active Directory integrated. If you are an Office 365 customer, your accounts are in Azure AD, and you could also enable them into your application in Azure AD. So I have a bunch of application Active Directories here, so I'm just going to focus on specific one, which is LCS MTG demo. So this is already integrated into my Azure subscription. Straight away, you can see from a console perspective, you will see all the users that are enrolled. And the one thing I would call out here is it gives you a report of where these users are coming from. So most of the Azure AD directory here, and you can also see there's a Microsoft account, which is your external users. If you have an on-prem AD and you're doing a directory synchronization or AD synchronization, then you will see that coming from your on-prem as well. In this tenant, I don't have that. And the groups is huge. You probably have familiar with the Office groups, which is a huge one that was announced recently, as well as Azure AD groups. So you can see here, I'll be covering a little bit on this groups later. But if you look at these groups allows you to not only be able to create them, but you can also enable them for whether you need to be enrolling it for self-enrollment as well as approval process for who can be added to these groups. The application, I'll be covering it a little later, but here is how you register your applications. Then the core that where I would just focus on today would be really, on this demo, is really the configuration. So you noticed how you can see the customization. So this particular domain is actually enrolled for Active Directory Premium, and here is how you can customize the branding. So you can change your sign-in. So I actually enabled some of those. I'm going to use this one to show. So I have enabled I've actually uploaded a banner logo as well as the sign-in page logo here, and this is where you can do it, and that's available for you in a basic and a premium. Now let's just focus on specific items here. So you could do password reset policies. And when we talk about password reset policies, you could either do a user enable for themselves to password, but also restrict them to access the password reset as well. So you can do that in two ways. You can also restrict by a group. So right now, if you say yes, you can enable it for a password group. So what this means is really you're delegating now a specific group, and then you're going to add users to those groups who can do those password resets. And this is, again, going back to delegating your administrative task. Now you can do this. And then I'll go back into the group, and I'll walk you through those, how you can do the approval process as well. Now, once you do this, then you're also going to enable authentication methods. And you can enable whether you want to enable the Office, mobile, or alternate users. And the number of authentication methods is required for you to reset. This is, again, if an end user goes back into resetting their password, we're asking them how many of these values that you want to provide before they can reset the password. Now, if you go, so what I'm trying to do here is to just show all the capabilities that exist once you register your domain into Microsoft Azure as a Active Directory. So here is the way you're actually doing the write back password. You can right now this is enabled no, but you can actually configure it and then set it up so that you will be able to do a password reset. Password reset as well as that password flows over back into your AD Premium, your on-prem servers. Now, this is where you configure the multi-factor authentication. I'll be doing that just about like 5 minutes later. Just want to focus on specifically the device management here. So devices could be registered through the Active Directory. The interesting piece, which is still in the preview that I wanted to call out, is really the users can register their devices to Azure AD. If you think about, we are all familiar with registering our devices through our on-prem Active Directory. So domain join mission has been around for long. And there are use cases, typically this happens in both the retail industry as well as in education, where there is a seasonal employees that comes into play, where you don't necessarily need to add them to your domain. But at the same time, you can use this as you can do a split between both registering with Azure AD as well as registering your domain level disk for your full-time employees or your long-time employees where you need to be managing them. What the nice thing with this is part of the Windows 10 capability now. The nice thing with that is you can actually, once you enroll the device as part of the Azure AD join, you get all the applications that you're publishing out in the Azure AD. So if you go back to the application that I showed up earlier, all the applications are automatically going to be available for that particular user. That's another reason how you can control what applications are going to be pushed out to this particular device. So you can do those things. That's something that's in preview, something that I wanted to just call out because I think that solves two problems. One is your device is integrated and you can manage them through Intune. Also, you can push out applications based on the policies that you can enforce here. So that's pretty much on the Azure overview here. So let me just go back here to the groups for a second. So I showed you how you can create these groups. This group is automatically created if the one is not there when I enable the restriction. But let me just go back into the group here for a second, and I want to go back to this group. And you can see I can configure this particular group with self-service activities. I can assign membership once it comes up. My internet is a little slow here today. So I could also enable dynamic membership. This is again a preview feature. So one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize here is Active Directory Azure Premium has been around for a long time now, but there is so much preview feature that are coming up, which has been based on the user voice feedback from Microsoft, as well as from customer looking at it and saying, okay, I need these functionalities. And one of the functionality that I just mentioned is the Azure AD domain join mission. Similarly, they're talking about dynamic membership as well. Now, you can also go back into the group members and then add the members here who can be here, and then you can also do the self-service activity. So into this slide in here, I want to go back to you quickly, and I don't know why this is not working. So like I mentioned, you can see that you can log in. Oh yeah, one other thing that I wanted to find out as well is typically if you go into a URL in a portal site, it goes to the Microsoft site. So for example, let me just go back here quickly. If I do, let's say I want to go to my SharePoint site, LCS mtg demo.onmicrosoftsharepoint.com, ask me to take, it takes me to my, maybe it will just go without prompting me here. I'll come back to this again. Another thing that I wanted to cover here is really the console, where you're actually seeing all of the what they call as a hamburger menu here, right? Triple hamburger menu, where you can actually see it. And My Apps is something where you can publish your apps. And I'll be doing a little bit deeper session on that when I expose the application side of it. And let me just go back to the password reset concept here. So you can actually enroll. There's two ways you can actually enable the passwords. Sorry, I'm jumping around here a lot. So one user here. Sorry, it is not. I'll come back to this. Okay, there you go. Took a while. So if you look at the name here, the work info is something that where you actually put in the information. I talked about the number of options where you can enroll, and there's two ways you can actually allow a user to put in this information. So as an admin, you can add those information for authenticating the phone number or alternate authentication or email. You can also send the user to have them pre-populated. And I'm going to open up my cheat sheet here just to go and copy the URL to take me to that page. So this page allows the end user to populate their own personal information. And the reason it's coming up with that is because I'm already logged in. So let me just go paste it up in Chrome and incognito. So I'm going to log in as admin, let's see, as mtgdemo.microsoft.com. As it comes, it will be there. Okay, there you go. So you can see that this is where people can actually change their phone number, change their authentication email. So I showed you another way where you can actually manage it is through information where admins can do it. So now those two things are off. Another one, I'll just go back to the deck here quickly to go back and talk about self-service password management. So I showed you the password management from two views. One as an administrator, where you can actually add information for the password and change the resets. The password change and reset is supported for both AD for cloud users, as well as for federated SSO. If you're familiar with the Forefront Identity Manager and the Microsoft Identity Manager, the newer version, they support both on-prem password synchronization, which has been around for long. Now you can also do password management both in Azure as well as in Windows Server AD because of the password write back. The password complexities can be enforced through both in policies from your Windows Server AD or your on-prem today. You can also do Azure AD also has a pre-canned default password, which is always going to be asked to reset, so we create a new user. Here are some of the PowerShell scripts that you can actually run to set those values. In order to set the password complexity, you just have to do the set MSOL user and then do the strong password. And expiry, you can set up the password expiry, and also you can set up policies as to how many days you want to be notified through setting the password policy with the notification days and the validity period. From a password reset perspective, you can actually proof out. So this is where you can enable those choices. I showed you there's two ways you can do it to say how many number of proof that you want to set up. Right now, the choices are 1 or the maximum is 2. In order to reset the password, they have to do it. And then you can also register the applications to forcefully go and access the My Apps. And then from a common use cases, you can pre-register these users by going into the Azure AD portal that I showed you and add a user and populate those values as well. From an end user perspective, you can set up in 2 ways. One is you can enable a choice saying for the first time they go into login, they can set their values for this additional complexity for password reset. You can, as an admin, you can reset that values. From a self-service, I brought up the company branding, which is available, and then registration and then account recovery information that I showed you. You can do those. So let's talk about how the password reset piece works here, right? So you have your Azure AD Connect or your directory synchronization working. It's actually going to be Azure AD Connect for password synchronization. So on the right side, you'll see your on-prem domain. On your left side, where the end user is actually populating or requesting a password change, there is a password service management service that's running in the cloud, which actually you're going to check whether the user is a federated single sign-on user or a password synchronization user. Based on that, it's either going to go into 2 things. One is it's going to go to the on-prem user, set those values, and it attempts to set it in the Windows AD, and that's where your policies are going to be checked to see if there is any, whether it meets your policy requirement. If there is a failure, it notifies it back through Azure Service Bus notification back into your end user devices, and then they can read it. And this time, the end user puts in the right value. They can actually reset the success. And then once the success happens, you'll have the forefront identity manager sync with your applications. So applications is a huge portion of management in Azure AD. And what I want to talk about here is really that the 3 ways you can actually integrate your applications in Azure AD. So there are pre-integrated applications that you can go and browse in a portal. There is some of those applications support both inbound as well as outbound integration for users. What it really means is the inbound users are, let's say, for example, Workday is an example where Microsoft recently integrated the Workday SAAS application to allow inbound provisioning. Think of that as a different system where they have the users managed, and then those are going to be populated in AD. So essentially, the application owner, which would be in this case a HR admin or benefit administrator, would create those user accounts on their system that gets populated back into Azure AD. And that's how you can provision. That's inbound provisioning. As outbound provisioning is really using the Azure AD as the source to create those. You can also, it supports single sign-on, both federated password as well as shared accounts. And shared accounts is, if you think about it, the example is, which is what I'm going to demo here on this, is really think about an application that within your organization shares for a specific purpose. Let's say the example that I'm actually demoing today is really on the Twitter. So think about your marketing department uses Twitter for their pushing out those feeds. And you want to enable Twitter for your organization within your department. Instead of adding multiple accounts, you can actually set those shared account and then manage that application within Azure AD, putting a group on it, and then adding and removing members to those groups as and when people change. So it accomplishes 2 things. One is your password to the Twitter account is not shown to the end user. That's one. And the second piece is really that you are managing the users is really at that Azure AD level and not at the Twitter level. So adding your own cloud applications, you can actually create your applications through Visual Studio. If you're a developer, you're familiar with this now. You can push out your applications either as a single tenant or a multi-tenant application. You can also publish an on-prem application that is sitting in your on-prem data center, and you expose an endpoint, and that endpoint is published in your Azure AD, and then it opens up all the functionality that Active Directory Premium supports, such as multi-factor authentication, all the alert notifications, all the reporting benefits. You get that through this. So I talked about user provisioning here. So Azure AD Directory integrates. I have a link here. And if you think about on the right side, I have the UPN and the group. The UPN is how they actually map those Workday user ID to your Azure user ID. Those are actually, the Workday now supports inbound provisioning. I talked about that. So you can actually map them over. And the groups are also provisioned and managed from Workday now. What it allows you to do is ongoing synchronization happen. So the users are really getting created in Azure AD from your application. From an outbound provisioning, you can also do profiles or roles. You can also map your application user ID to Azure AD UPN. You can also do automatic deactivation. So what the nice thing with this is the user is deactivated in the application once you deactivate the user from Azure AD. You can also do schema mapping modifications. I won't talk about that in detail, but provisioning and usage reports, those are available in Azure. Shared account, I talked about this as an example. I gave the Twitter. So you could do that from multi-user perspective. The passwords are protected. Here is a slide of how actually this application, this talks about publishing your application. So on the slide here, you can see there's two connectors set up, which is the Azure AD connectors. Those are in preview. So think about the way it works is you have your on-prem applications. Currently, the supported applications are your Outlook web app, your websites, and those are the additional pieces are going to come in. But you can use the connector to install, and then the connector would be running as a service on your on-prem. And the way that works is now your endpoints are actually be provisioned in application, and then you'll be able to sign in using that. So application assignments could be either direct, meaning that I, as an admin, just goes out and then assigns the permission to this particular application and add a user to that, or it could be through a group membership. A group membership allows you a lot of flexibility because now you can say for this application, this group, whoever is in that group are allowed to access, and then you can add and remove users to the groups. Now you can also do an assignment based on a self-employee registration. So for example, I want to publish my application to these users, and then they'll be available in the apps panel, and then they can go and select them and then say, okay, I like that application, or I want to use this application. You can do two things. You can actually automatically allow them, or you can have an approval workflow kick in and then have that approval sent to this application owner where he or she can decide whether it needs to be provisioned or not. I'll do the demo on that as well for this. So license management is something that you can manage it in Azure AD Premium. So you could be so think about Azure AD Premium as your dashboard. Earlier when I showed the control plane. So what we are doing here is we're using the Azure AD Premium control to manage everything in one place. It's really talking about licensing, enabling the multi-factor authentication per user, also set up their attributes, and also enable devices and see what the user is doing. So let me just go into the demo on applications. So back in here onto my Azure Manage Windows, windowsazure.com, and I talked about users, and let me just go do a quick view on groups. So we talked about groups. I have a group here called Twitter group, which is associated with a bunch of users here. And if I go back into the application, we keep talking about these thousands and thousands of applications that are pre-integrated, right? The way you do that is you go into Azure applications, you can add. Now you get these three choices here. So let me just pause here and then talk about each one of them individually. So you can add an application that your organization is developing. That's like your own on-prem application, you're building it, you probably need a connection to that. You can also add an application from the gallery. This is the Microsoft Marketplace gallery where you can actually go and look at the application. Those are pre-integrated. I talked about publishing an application that will be accessible from outside your network. That's your on-prem application that you have your legacy application that you want to expose for Azure AD so that you can take advantage of all the functionality of Azure AD. Those are the three choices. So I'm going to pick add an application from gallery. Here is how you'd see all the applications that are available for you to add. So I already went ahead and then picked up Twitter as my app, and I'm just going to search there. So you can see you can do this. One other thing you can actually see is it's listed by category, and you can pick and choose. So I already created this Twitter account. Let me just go into that and then click on. So I can click on configuring single sign-on. When I do that, it's going to give me two choices. The two choices are password single sign-on, where I'm actually putting in the credential for this particular application, or I want to have a through-and-through single sign-on, where the AD is completely pushed through. So for now on this, I'm using the shared account. If you remember going back to my slide, I actually mentioned three ways of doing it. So I'm talking about the shared account usage here. So I do a password single sign-on here. And now I go back into the configuration. I can either conditionally apply policies based on whether I want to enable for this application multi-factor authentication or not. Also, you can set it up by groups. These are in preview, right? So right now, this particular application is enabled for multi-factor, but the enabled access rule is on. And here is the self-service access to Twitter. So I'll talk about that self-service access in a second, but let me just focus on this particular application for now. And here are the users and groups where you can actually add the groups that your particular application is set to. And you can see that the Twitter group that I showed earlier is the one that's allowed. Now let me go back to this here from an end user perspective. How does it look? So for that, I'm going to log in as a user here, which I've already done. So I'm going to go to the My Apps portal. And this My Apps portal for Office 365, it's different. But then there is also myapps.microsoft.com, which is the actual access panel portal that you get when you enable the Active Directory Premium. So with this particular portal is available for all, and here is where you would manage the applications. So managing the applications, here you can see that Twitter is actually available for me as an end user. I can click on it. It's just going to automatically, or another thing that I wanted to call out here is, because I'm doing in private session, cannot do it. So the way the password synchronization works is through an extension, that browser extension for Access Panel that needs to be installed. There are some limitations on this right now, but Microsoft is working on them. So let me just close and then open up this same tab in a non-cognate window or open window. Bear with me for a second here. I'm just going to log in. I'm going to use this account. And one thing that you should notice here is I'm actually logging into the portal without the multi-factor authentication, right? But then I also go back to the application here just to make sure that we're catching this, right? So in the Twitter app, I enabled multi-factor authentication. Think about Twitter may not be a valid candidate for an enterprise, right? But think about an application that are secured, need to be secured, and you really have to be enabling this particular application to have additional security, you could do so by doing that. For some reason my Internet Explorer is bombing out on me. Let me just see if I can open up in Firefox. Hopefully it'll log in, hopefully. Let me see if I can use this one here, because I'm already logged into this. Okay. So I go to this, that's because I got the incognito window going far. Okay, it's still added, but it's not going to work on this. Always demo God. There you go. Okay. And that's because I got this ton of other directories here. It's showing me something different. So you can see I've logged into LCS NTG demo domain, and I've logged in as someone else. So at least you get the taste of that the end user sees only what they are allowed to see. You see that the application was empty when I was logging in as other user. Too many logins going on here. I'll come back to this in a second here. It's logged out now. That's fine. Our organization domain name to get logged in. That's why it wasn't getting me, but it should get me here now. Okay. All right. So now I go back to my hamburger menu, and I'll see my apps that are available. We talk about this in two ways. One is you can see that my apps that are available for me is available both in Portal Office. Let me just go click on it, and I want to make sure I've logged in as admin. And in this case, it's going to automatically log me in, and it's going to prompt me for multi-factor authentication. So it says, because the application demands that, it's asking me for multi-factor authentication here. Now, if I go back to this portal where I actually had my, unfortunately, it got logged me out. I'm going to the Microsoft Azure for looking at the domain. Well, that's coming. Let me just go back here. So I have another application that I wrote, which basically goes into a Azure hosted app That doesn't need any permission. All it does is actually it uses the Office 365 API, and it does the single sign-on and goes through my drive, my OneDrive, and looks at my OneDrive and pulls up all my OneDrive documents and shows up in a page. And I just did it for fun because this application is now using Office 365 API as an application, and then goes out to the OneDrive and shows my OneDrive files. If I go to my OneDrive here, you'll notice that the document exists there, and it's a real-time thing. So the point that I wanted to make here is really the notion of that selectively you can enable MFA for applications. So in this example, when I went to let me just go to my apps here, my apps.com. So you can see my apps. So selectively I have enabled. So this particular application is not having the MFA. However, this one, the Twitter one is. You can do that. So let me just jump quickly into the groups now. So groups, we talked about groups. We talked about the groups that are available to me. We can look at all the groups, and you can also create a group. And all of this configuration boils down back into your settings in your Azure AD. So let me just go into LCS. And I'm going to cover the approval portion of this so that you can understand the delegated group administration as well as the process. So while this is happening, let me just go back into this application again. And by default, we all know that Exchange Online and Office 365 is automatically integrated in Azure AD. So we talked about this, and then Twitter. Let me just wait for the application to come and show you the capabilities here. Just doing a time check here. I want to go back to the reports as well. All right, so let's go back to the groups here. And my group, I see the group as policy set to group type is security. Join policy is only the owner of this group can add member. I'm going to change that and show you the group policies that you can set up for a group. So we talked about only the groups of this can add. You can say this group requires owner approval, or this group is open to join for all users. So if I select group requires owner approval, then it's going to ask for approval process to have someone to be able to be a member of. So I just modified it, and I also want to remove one user from here, which is Alex Darrow. So let me remove him so that I can walk through this. And now I have this application, not having it here. Let me just log in as Alex Darrow. Again, my in-private session may not work for the single sign-on to work because it's based on the extension. But it's going to call my MFA because I've enabled MFA for him. But give me a second. It's calling my number now. And I'm putting a validation, so hopefully, yep, did it. So the multi-factor works. It just went through, picked up on this. While that's happening, I want to go back into this application. Actually, let me go back to configuration, sorry. So that's admin. Here. All right, so let me go back into this group portion of this on the application. So here is where we have the group management delegated, which is available now. So we said users can create a group. That's why you're seeing the My Apps here to have the groups being with the plus signs here, right? And also you can say enable dedicated. Now there's this new feature that's called integrated apps user access. So what we're going to do is here, you're going to say permission to access the data. User may add integrated application. And then there's one specific setting that I'm looking for. Okay, self-service for group. So it's set to yes. And Office 365 groups, this is still in a preview. You can create Office 365 groups from a user perspective. They can do that. And goes back to the concept of where the groups are. So you could have AD groups as well as the Office 365 groups. Let me just go back here. So the thought process was I was going to log in as Alex. Fortunately, I couldn't do that here. Looking at 12:52, I got 10 more minutes to cover the reports. Just bear with me for a second here. I will do the it's going. I just wanted to see. Okay, so you can see I can create a new group. Now there's a self-service enablement on the application side, which I wanted to cover here. So on the applications, if I go, actually it's on the configuration. Sorry. Okay. Restrict users, require. This is the notification, devices, group management, yes, yes. Users can create users, enable dedicated application proxy enabled, user access, limit access. So on the application, I'm going to go this, configure. Okay, so this is what I was looking for. So you could have self-service access to a specific application. So let's say I want to enable yes here. So what I'm trying to do is I actually went to the specific application, and I want to allow that to be seen by users. And then I want to also say require approval before granting access. And I'm going to select for this person the administrator for this. This admin. So I save that. So once that changes, now on my access panel, I should see the additional search button come up so that I can go and ask for application. In this case, I actually logged in as admin. Let me see if I can. Oh. Forgot my MFA on the work here. Okay, so I get the get more application. So remember, I removed the Twitter from them. So I could go and select the applications that are allowed for self-enrollment. In this case, I don't have the Twitter enabled. So I have to go back into Twitter and do the same thing. And enable the application to be self-service. Do the same thing. I want to say enable thing. And I here add the mod user, which is my admin, as the approver. Again, this is in preview. This is again going back to not only group management, enablement. The whole idea is empowering the administrator as well as delegating the permission management, who needs to be added to the SaaS-based applications for the application owner instead of IT being the person who's going to manage these passwords. You know, that's the whole idea. That's what I'm trying to showcase here. So now that I have that, hopefully if I do the refresh, I should see all applications that are available to me if I get that. But you get the idea. The idea is I can add the groups that I need to add, and I'll see the approval process of here to say who is requested and who is monitoring, and then you'll get an auditing log on those things. Unfortunately, I have to cut short on that to go back to my reporting piece of the conversation. So let me just jump back and show you what the available security reports are. So switching back to AD reports, right? So AD reports, Microsoft gives you for basic as well as free, the sign-ins, as well as the failures of those and multiple geographies. But then when you go into the Azure AD Premium, you not only get the basic free rules of who's signing in, you also get where the IPs are coming from, as well as for possibly infected machines. You can also see all those things using the dashboard, and you can download them. In addition to that, you can also verify the activity based on the password resets, how many people are resetting and for what reason. You'll get a detailed log of those. And from an application management, you can also see who's using your applications within your organization and how many times people are actually logging in. The way that high level, the way the Microsoft runs these reports are through the slides, you know. So what they're trying to do is really running reporting services. You get the UI, you get the notification, you also get the APIs. So essentially, you can actually get those information either as a text results, or through your notifications, or through your UI dashboard. So let me just go back into the report section to showcase, and hopefully by the time this one is enabled as well. And if I can do that, that would be awesome for me. All right, so go back to reports here. So I'll show you some of those reports that I just mentioned. So let's focus on the password reset activities. So password reset activities can be seen as to show how many people are doing this password resets, right? And you have a period, and you also have the source, from which source the password resets are happening. So either it's an AD Premium on your on-prem AD or in an Azure AD. And if this comes up, I'll be happy. Otherwise, Let me just see if I can use this time to show you the Twitter application. Yep, there it is. So I'm going to add this Twitter application. So I've switched on to this portal here to request for this application. Now, if I go back to my approval, I'll see my request being available here. That will be sent to this owner of this application. You think about this way: I am an application owner. That could be your Box, or that could be your DocuSign, or any other SaaS-based application, or it could very well be your own department-specific application. Those could be also managed through this. Now, if I go back to the other portal where I was the admin, I go back to my approval process here, and I can go into my approvals, and I'll see that the request is available, and I can add that and approve it. Once I approve it, the application is available for that particular user, right? So in this case, that would be Alex. Alex would have that approval approved, and he can now start to use this application in his application, right? So now I have the Twitter. Another thing that I wanted to call out here is I could actually go in and look at it from my OneDrive hamburger menu, right? And I go to the My Apps. Oh, again, don't want to do this from here. Let me just do it from the other person who's got the admin. Okay. While this is going, let me check on the report that I requested for. Too bad I don't have any password resets. Let me just check on the password reset. Another thing that I really wanted to quickly cover before the report. So the reports, you can see it, you can run them. You can also look at the user on an individual level within the premium, and you can go into the activity, and you can see all the activity for that particular user, be it when he's logged in, for what purposes, what's the user IP address, what is the location, what's the client that he's using. All of those information are available to you. And when you go into the devices, you can see how many devices this particular user is using that has been used for the application. And remember, I talked about the Azure AD domain joined machines. With the Windows 10 now, it allows you to add those devices to this Azure AD. If you enable that, then you will see all the devices that are being used by this particular application. And with that, I'm actually going to be wrapping up here. And I have a couple of slide links here that are really interesting for if you have more information that you want to go. Of course, there is always the Azure AD blog that you can use. With that, I'm actually going to be ending my session here and opening up for any questions if there are any.
Hi, Senthil. This is Tom. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. The first one is, how often does AD sync to Azure?
AD sync, it's by default, it's a 1 hour window that you actually get synchronized.
Okay. And there's another question. Where would you go to find the available applications?
Okay, so the available applications being on the SAAS, right? So you can do two things. One is you can actually go into applications and go into the add application from a gallery, which shows you that. There is also a Microsoft site where you can actually go into the Azure Marketplace. It shows you, so I'm actually going in right there. It shows you all the available apps that are popular, also all the apps by business categories. So as of now, I think there's about 2,488 applications available for you to add. Yep, those are good questions.
Great. And so there's no more questions in the queue.
All right. With that, really thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar. I hope you got something out of it. Really appreciate it. Thank you.